You find this theme of new all throughout the Bible. In fact, it is the theme of Jesus' very first miracle. His very first miracle is turning water into wine. Now, I'm going to be frank with you. Like, I have a lot of questions about the Bible. So if you're agnostic or you're atheist, welcome home. We're glad you're here. Just like you have questions, I have questions too. I have a lot of questions. And one of the biggest questions that I have is like, why would God turn water into wine? Other than that's an awesome party trick. You know, when the disciples said, teach us to pray, you got to know one of them was like, teach us to turn water into wine. Therefore, we shall always be invited to the party. That part didn't make it in the Bible. But why would he turn water into wine? Here's the premise of the story. Jesus, he's an adult now, but it hasn't been revealed that he's the Messiah, the Son of God. His mom knows who he is. Not very many people know who he is. He hasn't done any miracles that we know of. There's no recorded miracles. And they go to a wedding, him and his mom. We don't know if they're with friends. They're invited. We don't know what happens. They just show up. And Mary, the mother of Jesus, freaks out a little bit. And she comes to Jesus. She's like, Jesus, they've run out of wine. And Jesus is like, she's like, Jesus, what are we going to do? They've run out of wine. And Jesus is like, okay. Now, I studied this. Like, they ran out of wine. Like, how bad of a deal is that? And the depth of my study, it was just an embarrassment, mostly. Like, the worst thing that could happen is the bride's family could sue the groom's family for not providing. That's way, way deep into Jewish law. Like, that was it. Like, it's just an embarrassment. So why is Mary freaking, like, Jesus, oh, Jesus, they're out of wine. And Jesus says, woman, my time has not come yet. Now, let me tell you the difference between Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Paula, the mother of Jeremy. Because if I'd have been the son of God and I looked at my mom and been like, woman, she'd have been like, Father God, you better get your boy right now. I'm going to kill him. You're going to have to raise him twice. I ain't playing no games with you right now. Keep calling me woman. Watch what happens. Roll your eyes at me again, Jesus. I'll roll them back. Slap them right out your head. Sorry, Mom. I love you. God bless you. And Jesus, she looks at Jesus and says, you got to do something. And she walks over to some servants and she says, you see that guy right over there? That's my son, Jesus. Do whatever he tells you to do. And Jesus is like, Mama, come on. She's like, I'm going into the party. You better do something. And then Jesus takes these water pots, tells the servants, he didn't even touch them. He tells the servants, hey, get some water out of those water pots and deliver it to the governor of the feast. And they deliver it to the governor of the feast. And the governor of the feast goes, you've done what no one else done. You saved the best wine to last. And he turns the water into wine. Doesn't make sense. Why would Jesus turn water into wine? It's like the lady who was driving along in her car, and she had a big old wine bottle, and she got pulled over by a police officer, and he pulled her over, and he walked up, and he was like, hey, look, you can't drink wine and drive, lady. And she was like, it ain't wine. He's like, what is it? She said, it's water. He was like, let me see. He took it, he smelled it, he poured some out. He says, very obviously wine. She was like, Jesus did it again. Come on, thank you. Ossifer, he's a good guy. That has nothing to do with my sermon. It's just funny. Why would you? If you're new here, it's not going to get better, guys. This is it. Why would Jesus turn water into wine? And then I got to study in the miracle. I got to study in it. I got to look in deeper because the Bible always means what it says and says what it means, but it usually means something a little deeper. And I got to looking at the miracle, and then I got fired up. And I'm telling you, I'm so excited because Jesus, in seemingly a pointless miracle, showed you his entire purpose. The pots of water that he used were the pots of water that were used for washing feet. Because the mode of transportation in those days was feet. And you wore sandals. And so whenever you walked in somebody's house, you took your shoes off, and then the lowest ranking servant would pour clean water on your feet over a pail and then dump that pail of dirty water into a big urn. And as soon as all of that dirty water got in there from all of the people's feet, then they would take that out and they would empty that old nasty water. And Jesus, being amazing, looks at that old nasty, dirty lint floating around in it, funky water, you can't even see through it, and says, hey, go dip a cup in that water and take it to the governor of the feast. You got to know how that servant felt. He was like, okay, We find no record of the servant being like, why? Hey, you do it, bro. It's your turn. He takes it, and somewhere in the process of the servant, Jesus doesn't even touch the water. He uses somebody else to reach the water, to take the water, and somewhere in the process of taking the least likely, most likely to be thrown out, not used, nobody would believe that this used to be nasty water, and takes it to the governor of the feast. The governor of the feast tastes it, judges it, and said, that's better than anything that I have ever tasted. Only God can take something everybody else would discard, nobody else would use, messed up, broken, abused, sinful, shameful, and turn something broken into something beautiful. That's the God we serve. And that's the first miracle He does, to show you, no matter how messed up you are, He doesn't see you like you see you. He doesn't see you where you are. He sees you where He can take you. So please stop writing yourself off of something God has written you into already.